What is up, guys? It is Barry Michael Doyle here. Well, I really am good at saying at the same time over and over again. Anyways, welcome to this video. In the last video, I said I would give you a bit of a crash course just on TypeScript on its own without going through these algorithms because, we can learn algorithms all the time, but we might not touch on any TypeScript stuff. So I figured it's best to give TypeScript some love because we haven't really been using it yet. First of all, I want to thank you for Loic for sending me this question, and also thank you for the other dude who told me I had a great tutorial, a nice explanation. I'm glad it was good. Thanks for the thumbs up. I really appreciate your comments and your thumbs ups and smash that like button, guys, and hit the bell if you're not getting the content. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't either. I really like subscribers. It's been fun to watch my channel grow. Anyway, let's go to Loic's question. He says, when dealing with non-constant variables, do you prefer using let or var? And then he also says he's loving the videos so far. I hope the rest of you are loving the videos so far. I really hope you are. But basically, I thought I'd answer this question quickly before getting started. So it's not really about what I prefer. Well, I do have a preference. Some history, quick history on JavaScript is originally with JavaScript, you just had var. Then later on, you got these various versions of JavaScript like ECMAScript, and I think we're on like ECMAScript 7 now. ES6, ES7, they use const and let. So that's the thing. You have const for constants, and that's a pretty new thing. Like, well, it's not that new, but for the recent few years, const has been introduced. And previously, you just had var. Var meant const or let. You just used var for everything, and now you're more specific by just writing const or let. Const variables should not change, obviously, and let variables are variables you expect to change. So it's pretty much use const and let together or use var on its own. I'd recommend using const and let together because it's just better semantics. Someone else reading your code, or even you in the future reading your code, can see that this is supposed to change or this is supposed to not change. And that is pretty much how this works with variables. It just helps you read your code better if you use const and let rather than using var on its own. Anyways, let's head over to the actual course that I was going to do this video on. Right, so here we are in two different files. We've got a TS file, .ts, and a .js file, sandbox. I just call them sandbox because it's my little playground where I can type stuff, and I've got this running in Visual Studio Code at the moment. And currently there are just two files that I've kept on my desktop. One's a TS file and one's a JS file. I used to have a TypeScript plugin, but I think TypeScript at the moment comes pre-installed with VS Code now, so you don't have to worry about getting plugins or anything, so that's a cool thing. But yeah, let's just head to this. I figured I'd teach you guys a little bit about TypeScript here. I've sort of shown you a bit in the first video, but let me do this crash course from the beginning. So typically, as I mentioned, now I'm going to use const and let for both JavaScript and for the TypeScript stuff. So let's say we had a const, or let's make it let because we expect to change this. Const my name equals Barry. So there we've got that. I have nice little spacing there. And we're all happy with that. I meant to say let my name equal Barry. And because of this, because we've assigned it to a string, TypeScript will automatically say, okay, cool, my name is a string now. We can do the same thing here. Let my name equal Barry. That was spelled wrong. Well, got to do my camel case, it's good semantics. So Barry over here, we hold over our cursor here, and even here it knows it's a string, but because this is JS, we can say my name is equal to 0, and there's no complaint because now like we're just going to reassign it to. So yes, it was made as a string. I do have a TypeScript plugin somewhere here for VS Code, so if you, I don't know if this is a plugin or not, but it seems to be pre-installed. Here we know it's TypeScript, here we know it is JavaScript. So if we try to do the same thing in TypeScript, we said my name equals 0, we get an issue here. This complains, it says type 0 is not assignable to type string because 0 is a number, not a string. I mean, if we set this to 1, then the problem goes away because now suddenly my name becomes a number when we've initialized it. But even better, on top of that, you can say you're expecting a string here. And now it's going to complain because it's like you can't assign 1 to the string that we're expecting here. So now this has to be Barry. And this has to be my second name, Michael. There we go, and everything's all happy. Here, because we're in JS, we can't just say string, or we can. It's kind of weird. I think these days with the TypeScript plugins, this just does nothing. It's not gonna, my TypeScript validator is not gonna run on the JS file. You can say this, like you can set this up, but the TypeScript validation over here is going to run because this is a .ts file. So if you start writing TypeScript in a normal JS file, your code editor will most likely not pick up that this is invalid and not right, you know. Anyways, so that's how we have our types here. So that's pretty much, we don't need the JS file anymore because I've explained how this difference works. So I'm just going to close that. I don't need to save anything. So let's focus on this. So we can have const my variable equal anything. We can be false, and in that case it's going to be a boolean. We can have it equal 5, and suddenly this is, wow, what happened to my stuff? Okay, well 5 here it actually expects it to be 5, so because it's a const, it's not like, it can't change, so this will always be 5. So if you make this let, then it's expected to be that was bad, I didn't mean to accidentally click that. If we say let, then this can be a number, false, this can be a boolean. If we make it Barry, then this could be a string. You see, that's all good. So those are the 3 basic data types that you get. It can be a boolean or string or anything. Now let's say I did want to change my variable to equal 5. If I wanted to make this possible and make this work in TypeScript, we could just say that this can be anything. So now we're saying that this is allowed to be anything. I mean, heck, you can even make this always equal undefined if you wanted to. I spelled undefined wrong. But then it's going to complain that Barry is not undefined, you know. You also get void, which are like for, I did not type that right, void, which are for functions. So that's for, you know, doing a function that's not meant to return anything. So that's pretty much, but we have our string, we have number, and we have boolean. So remember, boolean is true, false. The number can be a float, so it could be like 1.7. That's also a number. In TypeScript, we've just got string, number, boolean. Those are the basic data types. And then you get the other stuff like any. You could make it undefined. Null is also one. Those are different types that we can use. So just giving you the basics of what types you can use. Again, void is also an option. And then people make their own types in their packages that are suiting specific things. So let's go into something a little bit more complicated. Still not that much complicated. We can make const my object, and we can make this equal, again, let's make it let, so it shows us in here what it could be. So we're going to let my object equal Barry, well, name Barry, age, my current age is 24, and is single, true. I don't have a very big ladies demographic right now, so might stay that way for a while. But here we have my object, and suddenly it says, okay, this is an object expecting a string like name, age, single. So now if we set my object to equal name, make it my middle name, Michael, and let's say that's working well for me, and my age next year is 25, and maybe next year I'm not dating, so we say is single is false. This is all good and happy, but if we say is married, it's going to be like, hey, listen, you made this object over here that was, when you made it, we expect it to be name, age, is single, is married. It's like, what? Where did that come from? You know, that's not what we originally said. What's wrong with you? Even if we leave this out, it's like, hey, last time you said there was a single boolean in here, and now there's not, you know? So again, you can fix this issue by just saying this can be anything, and now it's like, cool, I can make this whatever I want. I can say is married, false, which is the same as being single, I guess. Yeah, you know, like, we can set this to any, and then this object suddenly becomes useful in normal JavaScript terms. So in general, when you're used to JavaScript and you're having trouble with TypeScript, just set the type to be any, and you can keep on carrying on your work. But in general, the beauty of TypeScript and the power of TypeScript comes off the setting types for things, because then you don't have to unit test your codes. You can actually see that, hey, this is not what we expected to have here. So I'm going to teach you how to make this expect a specific type, because, you know, we could have, like, we want this name, age, and is single to always be the case. We want to give this object an actual interface. So we want to say that this object's always going to have a name, always going to have an age, always going to be single. And we want to set it ourselves, like, before even making this object. So if we comment this out and just move that down, well, we don't need this one anymore. But if we had this, Oh, by the way, actually, now that I think of it, the object itself, you can make this a constant. It can be my object, and yes, this can be anything, but we could still change my object dot name equal to Michael, and that's fine. That's legal. You know, the object still stays the same, but you're changing the name inside the object. So you're not saying that this name is constant and this age is constant and this is single variable is constant or key. We're saying that, hey, this is my object. This object's not going to change the object itself as a whole, but we can change the keys inside the object, so we can mutate our object. But anyway, enough of that. So I'm going to keep this a constant. I'm going to leave that there. Now, before we've even made this object, you know, we can make this whatever we want. We can like not say is single. We can say is single still true. Like as we're building this object, the type gets inferred. So if I take, again, if I comment out this is single, then suddenly my object becomes name and age. But what if we want to say that, hey, my object is going to always be name, age, is single before I even create it? Here, we need to create something called an interface. And generally you say, you start an interface name with I. So we can say I, my object. And that's the interface name for my object. If we could just call it I, my object, something's complained. We're expecting to close this. So when I'm using React and I set up my TS-lint, I like to make my interfaces start with an I, because I'm usually importing them from somewhere, like, you know, export interface and then go import it somewhere else. So it's nice to say I, my object, because then we always know it is an object. So here we're saying my object's always going to be an empty object. So if I assign I, my object to this, then suddenly we've got a bit of a problem. I don't know why it's not giving me a problem. That's weird. It should be tuning me. It should be saying, hey, this is not okay. But alas, maybe there's some wrong TypeScript setups here. But if I said name was always going to be, oh, now that I'm assigning it something, generally you shouldn't have an empty object assigned to your stuff. But if I said name is going to be a number, then suddenly it's like, hey, you can't make a string Barry go into name, because name is supposed to be a number. Yeah, it's still kind of okay. It's like, oh, well, you know, we're expecting this. Let's make it a string. Oh, yeah, when I've made it a string now, we're expecting my object to just be a single object with a name that is a string. Now, suddenly we're like, where's this age come from? That's not right. You know, my object is supposed to be an I, my object, which is this name and string. Age doesn't fit into my object. It's like, what is wrong with you? So you've got to learn to read these errors, and this will help you make good code, because you're not having random unexpected variables in here. So here we want to say, okay, I also want to have an age in here that's a number, and we want to have a is single to be a boolean. And now it's also like, hey, my object is also expecting an is single boolean. So I'm like, I'll add that back in, and then bam, this works again, which is awesome, you know. We could make another thing in here. We could say a print name, and we'll make this it a function that just, it does something. It doesn't return anything. Now this is expecting a function. So print name, and we're gonna say, okay, this is a function that console logs this dot name. You can actually say this dot name. Is it this dot name? Okay, it's looking at the global this. It's got a I think I've got a dot bind this. So we're binding this to the object. But actually, I'm a bit confused. In any case, I'm doing something wrong there. That's got to be a comma. I'm not going to get into the complications of this right now, because I have not studied on how to explain this to you. But basically, this would console log print. Maybe we should call this print greeting, just so they're not related to what's inside the object. And we'll talk about those more advanced stuff later. So print greeting, and this will be hello. Well, this works, you see. If we're expecting this to return a number, then we're like, okay, what the heck? So if this returned, see, this itself is a function, but if this returned 14, then it's all happy. If there's a function that returned hello, then it's like, hey, we wanted a string here, so you'd write a string. But we just wanted to return like a function that returns nothing, which, okay, well, it could be anything here, but yeah, it returns that. So we can do that, and that's how you would say a function inside these interface things. So there's quite a lot of cool stuff. Okay, yeah, I forgot my semicolons here. It depends when I say if everything cleans up nicely for me. But what I was going to say is you can have other stuff like types. Like, let's say my age can only be 24 or 25 or 27 for some reason. Then we can say type ages. I make my types full caps, and the ages can be either 24 or 25 or 27. And now suddenly we can say, okay, this age is going to be 24, 25, or 27. So this age over here, it's one of ages, and ages is 24 or 25 or 27. So if I made this 28, it's going to be like, yo, what the heck? 28 is not assignable to type ages. Ages is either this or this or this. And this could be strings if we wanted them to be. That's an option. Or, yeah. And now it's like, hey, we want our age to be string 28. And then, not string 28, string 27. And you see this, like, you can make it true, false, or undefined. Like, true or false or undefined. But technically, this is just a Boolean or undefined, and then it's like, hey, we want this to be false or undefined. But here's another cool thing. Rather than having this say ages, or we can make ages always be a Boolean. For some reason we're calling it ages, which is a bit dumb. It's a bit dumb to say this. Or let's make our ages 24 or 25 or undefined. So yeah, our ages is good. But another way is to say, hey, let's make the available ages 25. And let's, like, leave undefined out of here. So now if we have undefined, usually it gives me an error, but I don't know why it's not giving me an error right now. But what you would do in the interface, because remember my ages is sitting in here, we'd say question mark. So this means that this key here is optional. So that means that this can be out, and that's fine, If we make it not optional, then suddenly my object's not valid because it's expecting an age. So this is just a bunch of useful stuff I thought I'd show you guys to get you on track with understanding a little bit more about how TypeScript works and how it's quite helpful, because it'll point out issues. It basically forces you to conform to the standards that you've set for yourself later. So this is just very nice when you're working across many different files and you're just importing types everywhere. And yeah, when you're using other people's packages as well, when they assign types to this thing and say, this thing needs to have a name in it, and it needs to have an age in it, and it needs to have a print greeting in it, it doesn't need to have this is optional. Or let's say it just needs the name and the rest can be optional. When they set up these types and you import their types from their packages and assign it to your objects that you're creating, suddenly it will give you a warning. It'll say, hey, listen, Brew, you need a name. You need to have a name, otherwise this is going to break. But the other stuff, they're available to you. So here, age is optional, isSingle is optional, print greeting is optional. So I can remove these, and my object is valid. Suddenly I put in a gender. Oops, I can't spell gender at all. And I say male. It's like, yo, dude, what the heck? You can't just add gender in here. There's no gender string here. This is not what we expected, Gender does not exist in type my object. So it freaks out. It's like, that's not cool, dude. You can't add a gender in here. We're expecting an age. Maybe if we made types gender, and don't get mad at me if I leave out other. We'll say gender is either full caps male or full caps female, or full caps other. Let's just make it other in case, This is complaining because it's like, hey, this is supposed to be... Oh, actually, I haven't added gender to this list. So let's add gender to this. Gender, and we're going to say this is the type gender. We're actually going to say genders. Oops. Genders, because, we're listing multiple genders. Now it's like, yo, okay, gender is required. Let's also make this optional, by the way. But this gender is small case male, when this one's full case male. So you see, that's a problem as well. Like, male over here... male is not assignable to type genders because genders takes full caps male, full caps female, full caps other. This is nice to also prevent mistakes, to say I'm expecting like, uppercase answers here and specific answers. So we make this male and wow, it works. It's great, If we made this undefined, like optional, so we can comment this out and everything still works. You see, I'm just showing you that now you can say other here, and that's okay too, and you can say, make a spelling mistake and say others, and then suddenly it's like, hey, listen, others is not a valid item for genders, So it's just really, really useful in getting you to conform to good guidelines and actually knowing when you're inputting correct data or incorrect data. So TypeScript can be really useful for this, and that's the power of TypeScript. And I'm looking forward to making some tutorials in React because it really is helpful to build your components with TypeScript in mind and actually use TypeScript to our advantage to build epic React components. Anyways, guys, that's me. If you did enjoy the video, if you found it useful, please leave a like and hit the bell, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Leave comments. I really appreciate comments. I'll feature your comments if they're there. Well, I might feature them, I might not, but just the more comments you leave, the merrier. If you become a regular commenter and ask good questions, then I can answer those good questions and it would be great. Anyways, guys, that's going to be me. I'll catch you guys in the next video. And we'll go back to the cool code fight stuff, or it's code signal now. We'll do that in the next video. Catch you then. Ciao.